Alright guys, section 4 and section 4 starts with multiple choice. Again I tell you Ielts, Cambridge people, they have a big bank of Ielts tests. Huge bank means 1000 tests or 1500 tests. So what do? Sometimes they make a new test. How do they make a new test? Test number 950 section 1. Test number 847 section 2. And then they compile a new test, right? One of my students appeared in Ielts and he told me he appeared in 5-6 times. So 5th, 6th time he said one section was there which I had already solved in another test. And those tests are not leaked. Those tests are not in Cambridge Ielts books. Okay, just keep that in mind. Nothing will come from Cambridge Ielts books. It's only the pattern you have to follow, the test which they play actually. Then, for example, now we've got book 16. So the tests they released in book 16, now those 4 tests are out of their bank. Now they are no more there, okay? Now, multiple choice, and you know about multiple choice, instead of looking for the right answer, we have to look for the wrong answer. And we have to negate those options. Okay, it depends, I tell you. It can be something like 31, 32 MCQs and then 33 to 40 one word only or completion. Or it can be 31 to 38 one word only, 39 and 40 MCQs. नहीं सारे भी आ सकते हैं but not so many. अगर किस्मत वाकई खराब है तो फिर सारे ही आएंगे. Yeah, exactly. So 31. Honors of the underground house. Now just imagine underground house. By the way, right now you are in an underground building. Underground house means basement. Okay, now just imagine basement. Honors of underground house. Option A, had no experience of living in rural area. No experience living rural area. Option B, interested in environmental issues. Interested environmental issues. Clear? Option C, wanted a professional project manager. Professional, or you can write wanted project manager or professional, or manager is the key word. Wanted manager. And for more wanted, they might use the word required, or they can use the word needed, right? Now, I'll play the audio and then you can tell me what is the right answer. And again, honors of the underground house. So they wanted all these things.
You will hear part of a lecture about an experimental design for a house.
Good morning. In the last few lectures, I've been talking about the history of domestic building construction. But today, I want to begin looking at some contemporary experimental designs for housing. So, I'm going to start with a house which is constructed more or less under the ground. And one of the interesting things about this project is that the owners, both professionals but not architects, wanted to be closely involved, so they decided to manage the project themselves. Their chief aim was to create somewhere that was as environmentally friendly as possible. But at the same time, they wanted to live somewhere peaceful. They'd both grown up in a rural area and disliked urban life.
Okay, A is no experience of living a rural area. He said they had experience of that life. And B is interested in environmental issues. No. Alright, C is wanted a professional project manager. Exactly. Now, the order in which they spoke, that was C, B, A. And the right answer is B. B for boy. I'll play it again.
You will hear part of a lecture about an experimental design for a house.
Good morning. In the last few lectures, I've been talking about the history of domestic building construction. But today, I want to begin looking at some contemporary experimental designs for housing. So, I'm going to start with a house which is constructed more or less under the ground. And one of the interesting things about this project is that the owners, both professionals but not architects, wanted to be closely involved. So they decided to
Okay, they wanted to be closely involved, right? Now, actually, they didn't want a professional project manager. Listen on.
Manage the project themselves. The interesting things about this project is that the owners, both professionals but not architects, wanted to be closely involved, so they decided to manage the project themselves.
They decided to manage the project themselves. So not professional project manager, they wanted to do it themselves. So this is what it is opposite thing, right? Now let's move on to option B.
Their chief aim was to create somewhere that was as environmentally friendly
Their chief aim was to be somewhere that was environmentally friendly, interested in environmental issues. Chief aim, right? So B is the right answer. Now let's see why A is wrong.
as possible. But at the same time, they wanted to live somewhere peaceful. They'd both grown up in a rural area.
They both grown up in the rural area. A had no experience. They both grown up in the rural area. Rural means village. Yeah, rural, they use the rural word as well. Now you understand why A and C are wrong. Question number 32. Okay. So question number 32 is, what does the speaker say about the site of the house? Now it's going to be speaker's comment or whatever the speaker says about the house. Land was quite cheap. Now for quite cheap, they can use dirt cheap, or it was very cheap, relatively cheap, or any other word like that. Option B, stone was being extracted nearby. Now stone was extracted. By the way, if you don't know, the site where stone is extracted, in geological language they call it quarry. Quarry is a place where the stone is extracted. Now this is site was being, stone was being extracted. Means still the quarry was on and they were extracting the stone. And C, it was in a completely unspoiled area. Now please listen and then answer question number 32.
So the first thing they did was to look for a site, and they found a disused stone quarry in a beautiful area. The price was relatively low, and they liked the idea of recycling the land, as it were. As it was, the quarry was an ugly blot on the landscape, and it wasn't productive any longer either.
All right, now the right answer is A. Why? Because land was quite cheap, and for that they use the word relatively cheap or relatively low, or relatively price was relatively low. Now if we come to option B, stone was being extracted. What is the word they used for that? Disused, absolutely. And for option C, it was in a completely unspoiled. For that they use the word wasn't. Let's listen to it again.
So the first thing they did was to look for a site, and they found a disused stone quarry
Disused stone quarry. Option B should be crossed here.
in a beautiful area. The price was relatively low,
The price was relatively low. That's the right answer. Land was quite cheap. Quite cheap and relatively low.
and they liked the idea of recycling the land, as it were. As it was, the quarry was an ugly blot on the landscape,
Quarry wasn't ugly blot on the
and it
landscape.
wasn't productive any
And
longer.
it wasn't productive. So completely unspoiled, no. It's just the opposite. Thank you.